stood on the edge of Detroit's 8-Mile Road, mic in hand, ready to fight not just for rap glory, but for survival. Eminem wasn't born with swagger. He clawed for it. He faced threats, violence, and the fear that his one chance might slip away. But what few know, when he stepped into California in the early 2000s, he didn't walk alone. Samoan gangsters, Crip heat, and hidden deals helped him get out alive. Tonight, we unravel how Slim Shady's brushes with danger, his ties to Boo-Yaa, and his ruthless drive made him more than a rapper, made him someone you don't want to bet against. Before Slim Shady terrified America, there was just a broke kid named Marshall Mathers living in Detroit's forgotten corners. Born in 1972, bouncing between trailer parks and cheap rentals, he grew up surrounded by addiction, anger, and instability. His mother struggled, his father vanished, and school felt like a war zone. He was bullied daily, mocked for being poor, white, and different. But in that chaos, he found rhythm. Words became armor. He started sneaking into rap battles at 15, the lone white voice in rooms filled with doubt. The Detroit scene didn't welcome him easily, so he fought harder. Every rhyme was survival, every verse a counterpunch. Out of rejection came obsession. He studied syllables like blueprints, learning to stack words until they hit with surgical precision. That's when Slim Shady was born, a twisted alter ego who said everything Marshall couldn't. By 1997, his mixtape Slim Shady EP landed in Dr. Dre's hands through Jimmy Iovine. Dre heard the fury, the humor, the madness, and he signed him instantly. Within months, this trailer park dropout went from battling for rent money to recording inside Aftermath Studios. No one in hip-hop saw it coming. The white kid they laughed at was about to rewrite rap history, not by blending in, but by burning every rule that said he couldn't belong. When Dr. Dre introduced Eminem to the world in 1999, the industry froze. The Slim Shady LP was a Molotov cocktail of dark humor, trauma, and cartoonish violence, and it sold millions. The single My Name Is turned him into both a superstar and a public enemy overnight. Parents wanted him banned. Teenagers memorized every word. Eminem didn't chase acceptance. He weaponized rejection. The follow-up, the Marshall Mathers LP, detonated like nothing before it. Stan, The Way I Am, and Kill You blurred the line between autobiography and insanity. He mocked pop stars, politicians, even his own mother. Yet behind every outrageous bar was brutal honesty, addiction, poverty, anger, guilt. It wasn't just rap, it was therapy with a drumbeat. But success brought darkness. Fame magnified every feud, every insecurity. Lawsuits stacked up, the media swarmed, and death threats became normal. Still, his precision sharpened. What scared critics most wasn't his violence, it was his intelligence. He knew exactly how to offend, when to shock, and why people couldn't look away. By 2001, Eminem wasn't just a rapper, he was a cultural event, and the most unpredictable weapon hip-hop had ever seen. At his peak, Eminem wasn't just fighting critics, he was fighting to stay alive. In 2003, rumors surfaced from Los Angeles. Local Crip sets wanted to tax him, demanding money for protection whenever he toured the West Coast. For a Detroit outsider with no gang ties, that was dangerous territory. That's when the Samoan rap crew, Boo-Yaa T.R.I.B.E, stepped in. They weren't just rappers, they were respected street figures with real influence in California. According to group member Monsta Gunja and Hip Hop DX interviews, Eminem's manager Paul Rosenberg reached out for help after hearing the threats. Boo-Yaa agreed to handle security. In return, M gave them a verse for their 2003 track 911 alongside Be Real. The deal worked. Once Boo-Yaa showed up, the extortion talk died instantly. Nobody wanted to test them. What looked like a random collaboration was really a silent alliance, a shield. It showed Eminem wasn't naive about fame. He understood power. In the streets, respect isn't earned with record sales. It's earned with protection. For the first time, people realized Slim Shady wasn't just dangerous on the mic. He was dangerous to approach. That partnership cemented his survival in a world where money and fame make you a target. Eminem didn't just rap about fear, he lived through it and made sure nobody could exploit it again. By the early 2000s, Slim Shady wasn't just just a rap persona. He was a cultural panic. Every time Eminem dropped a song, lawmakers and parents called for bans. Religious groups protested concerts. Politicians like Lynn Cheney accused him of corrupting the youth, but that only made him stronger. Controversy was oxygen, and he knew exactly how to breathe it. Through the Marshall Mathers LP and The Eminem Show, his lyrics sliced through political correctness like a blade. He mocked the media, tore apart pop culture, and admitted his demons with surgical honesty. Songs like Cleanin' Out My Closet weren't just entertainment, they were therapy sessions, broadcast to millions. Every line about his mother, his ex-wife Kim, his daughter Haley, made people wonder, was this art or confession? Behind the shock value, there was genius. Slim Shady wasn't violence for violence's sake. He was the voice of a generation angry at hypocrisy. The very people calling him evil were the ones who bought his records. He embodied America's split personality, moral by day, monstrous by night. But what most people didn't see was how heavy that persona became. The anger he used to fuel his career started to consume him. He couldn't escape Slim Shady anymore. He drank to silence him, popped pills to control him, but the voice only got louder. The fame he'd fought for became a trap. And even though he was on top of the world, selling millions, winning Grammys, starring in 8 Mile, inside he was crumbling. The public saw a man who terrified the establishment. What they didn't see was the man terrified of himself. Eminem's success brought war. Every new feud became headline news, from Benzino and Ja Rule to entire magazines like The Source that tried to bury him. But nobody could outright or outthink him. His diss tracks weren't just insults, they were executions. One verse could end careers. Still, behind the triumphs, the pressure was killing him. The death of Proof, his best friend and D12 bandmate, in 2006 shattered him. Proof wasn't just family. He was the one person who could pull Marshall out of Slim Shady's chaos. Losing him sent Eminem spiraling into addiction, prescription pills, sleep deprivation, paranoia. His interviews grew erratic, his public appearances rare. By 2007, he was a ghost of himself. He collapsed from an overdose that nearly ended his life. For a man who once joked about death, coming face to face with it forced a reckoning. Recovery wasn't just a word, it became his mission. When he returned with Relapse in 2009, fans saw glimpses of the old Shady, dark humor, horrorcore flow, but something was different. The rage was still there, but it sounded focused. By recovery in 2010, he had finally found balance. Gone were the drugs. In their place stood reflection. Tracks like Not Afraid and Love the Way You Lie showed a man who'd finally turned pain into purpose. He didn't just survive fame, he dissected it. He used his near death to build a message. Vulnerability could be just as powerful as vengeance. And yet, the shadows of his past, the anger, the fear, the danger, never left. They just learned to live beside him. For someone who spent decades writing about violence, Eminem has lived closer to it than fans realize. He's been robbed, stalked, and in 2020, an armed intruder broke into his Detroit home while he slept. According to TMZ and Rolling Stone, the man told police he was there to kill him. The situation ended without bloodshed. Security detained the intruder until police arrived, but it shook M deeply. That moment blurred fiction and reality. For years, he'd rapped about defending himself, about paranoia and danger. Now, it was at his doorstep. Some reports claimed he employed undercover cops for protection afterward, though that remains unverified, but the symbolism mattered. Eminem, once the aggressor, had become the target. Fans began reinterpreting his older lyrics. Lines that once sounded like exaggerations suddenly felt prophetic. His obsession with security, his avoidance of public appearances, his quiet, guarded lifestyle, it all started to make sense. But it wasn't just fear, it was evolution. Eminem understood that survival in hip-hop isn't about being the toughest, it's about outlasting everyone else. He'd fought poverty, addiction, lawsuits, and literal death threats. Now he was fighting time itself, trying to stay relevant in a culture he helped create. He remains an anomaly, a legend without a crew, a target without weakness. Boo-Yaa T.R.I.B.E might not guard him anymore, but their legacy, that aura of protection, danger, and respect, still surrounds him. Eminem doesn't need muscle now. His words alone remain the most lethal weapon in music. By the 2000s, Eminem was no longer just a rapper. He was a myth. But myths are lonely things. When recovery catapulted him back to the top, the world cheered for his redemption, yet few noticed how distant he'd become. The interviews grew shorter, the laughter rarer. Fame had stopped being exciting. It had become armor. Behind that platinum smile lived a man who trusted almost no one. The Boo-Yaa era was long gone, but the paranoia it represented stayed. Eminem's protection network evolved from muscle to method. Tinted cars, limited travel, private studios, and a life guarded by silence. Fans saw him as the wordsmith who never missed. But those close to him saw something else. A man still haunted by everything he survived. Addiction, loss, and fame's unrelenting noise. He started building walls out of work. The Marshall Mathers LP, 2 in 2013, was both nostalgia and confrontation, revisiting his demons with surgical calm. He re-examined the monster he created and admitted that Slim Shady was no longer a shield. He was a shadow that never left. The technical brilliance was there, sharper than ever, but the fun had vanished. The danger now came not from rebellion, but from obsession. For decades, people called him the most dangerous man in music. That label used to mean shock value. Now it meant endurance. Eminem didn't need controversy anymore. His continued existence, his refusal to fade, was its own rebellion. He outlived every critic, every rival, every era that swore he was finished. But with survival comes isolation. In interviews, he confessed that fame felt like a glass box. Everyone watching, no one hearing. He wasn't chasing validation now. He was chasing peace. And that's the cruel truth about greatness. It rarely leaves room for happiness. By 2017, Eminem had become hip-hop's most polarizing elder statesman. The new generation worshipped him, feared him, and challenged him, often all at once. Then he dropped Revival, an album that split critics and fans alike. Some called it out of touch, others called it brave. But to Eminem, it was therapy. The first time he openly tackled political outrage, fatherhood, and aging in a young man's game. The backlash reignited the Slim Shady fire. In 2018, he answered with Kamikaze, a surprise record that tore through the industry like old-school vengeance. Every verse was a reminder. The king still breathed. He dismantled SoundCloud rappers, critics, and anyone who doubted his relevance. And the most shocking part? He sounded hungry again. But even that aggression had changed flavor. It wasn't ego, it was survival instinct. Hip-hop had evolved into a new era of auto-tune and algorithms. Eminem didn't adapt to it. He bulldozed through it. Yet, tucked beneath the fury were moments of reflection, about proof, about his daughter now grown, about mortality. He knew legacy doesn't last by accident. It must be defended like territory. He also began to subtly reshape his myth. The Boo-Yaa connection, once whispered like a rumor, became a symbol of authenticity, a reminder that even at the height of pop superstardom, Eminem had street roots strong enough to protect him. The man once accused of being an outsider had earned respect in every circle that mattered. And yet, the world he built had changed. His enemies were no longer rappers, they were expectations. Each record had to be sharper, faster, smarter. He was competing not with artists, but with time itself. That's what makes his later albums so intense. You can hear a man rapping like he's running from extinction, but the truth is, he already won. He became the standard others measure against, the ghost haunting every studio where a young MC tries to prove himself. Today, Eminem stands as something hip-hop rarely allows, an aging legend who never lost his edge. The fire still burns, but quieter now, like coals beneath steel. He's clean, sober, sharper than ever. His words still cut deep, his timing still surgical. But beneath the surface lies the same paradox that defined his life. The man who rapped about death learned how to survive everything but himself. He lives mostly in solitude in Michigan. Not Hollywood, not New York, but the place that made him. Occasionally he surfaces for award shows, surprise verses, or tributes. Each time, the internet reminds the world that he's still untouchable. Younger rappers idolize him. Veterans respect him. Even his harshest critics admit he outlasted them all. But what makes him truly dangerous today isn't anger, it's clarity. He's seen every side of fame. The hunger, the addiction, the lawsuits, the literal threats. He's faced gang extortion, stalkers, and break-ins. He's buried friends, raised a daughter, and fought himself in public for 30 years. That kind of experience turns fear into instinct. When Eminem once joked about having undercover cops ready to handle any threat, fans laughed. But the line revealed something deeper. He knows survival requires planning. He's lived through too many close calls to take chances. The violence of his youth became the discipline of his age. And that's his final trick, transforming danger into legacy. He entered as chaos, but leaves as control. Every word, every pause, every silence now feels intentional. Eminem doesn't need to scream to prove prove power anymore. His longevity does that for him. In a world that chews through artists faster than headlines, he remains the last of a dying breed. A man who turned trauma into poetry, poverty into empire, and fear into fuel. He came from nothing, fought everyone, survived everything. And maybe that's the ultimate truth about Marshall Mathers. You can threaten him, cancel him, copy him, but you'll never outlast him.